Welcome to the AI Chat Podcast. I'm your host, Jaden Schaefer. Today on the podcast, we have the pleasure of being joined by Kumaran Ponnambalam, who is a technology leader with 20 plus years of experience in AI, machine learning, and big data. His focus is on creating robust, scalable AI models and services to really drive effective business solutions. He's currently leading AI initiatives in Outshift by Cisco. In his previous roles, he's built data pipelines, analytics, integrations, and conversational bots around customer engagement. He's also authored several courses on the LinkedIn Learning platform, so I highly recommend you go check those out. Those are kind of in the AI and big data spaces. But welcome to the show today, Kumaran.
Thank you, Jaden. Thanks for having me.
Super excited to have you on the show. I wanted to kick this off and ask you a little bit about your journey. What kind of brought you into the field of AI and machine learning? And what was your motivation? How did you discover what you're doing today?
So my entire career of 30 years is all on data. I started in the Oracle platform and then moved on to various, RDBMS to big data all the way to AI. So deriving insights from data has always intrigued me. How do you write these queries? How do you extract insights from data? So when machine learning became popular, my interest in the field grew because, it's kind of a great tool to make your best use of data. And I've been in this ML space for the last 10 years, and it's been pretty exciting. And it's rapidly changing, so that does give us a lot of initiative to kind of stay there.
Mm-hmm. Have you ever wanted to start your own podcast? I record and publish podcasts on a platform called Spotify for Podcasters, and I absolutely love it. Essentially, you can upload from your phone or computer, and it distributes to every platform that plays podcasts. They support video podcasts, and you can make money on the platform with ads or even podcast subscriptions, something that has made my life so much easier as a podcaster. So if you're interested, I highly recommend you give it a try. You can download the Spotify for Podcast app, or go to spotify.com/podcasters to get started on your podcast today. Very, very cool. So you're currently working at Outshift by Cisco. Yeah. Tell me a little bit about how you got started there.
So Outshift by Cisco is a separate team in Cisco that is focused on new initiatives and new product lines and new domains beyond what Cisco is doing otherwise in the other products. So it's got a lot of opportunities for innovation, especially in new and emerging areas. So that's why I moved into this group about 18 months back. Here we are currently focused on GenAI and ways in which it can help enterprises. So we are looking into applications of GenAI around things like observability, security, moderation. We're also looking at use cases for enterprises in GenAI. Beyond that, Outshift is also focused on cloud native security and quantum computing and other emerging areas in the software field.
Okay, very excited. Something I'd love to ask you about, what are some of the most exciting areas that you're currently working on in Outshift by Cisco?
So that GenAI is number one. Number two is CNAP, or cloud native application protection. And then some amount of research that we do with universities on areas like quantum computing and other new technologies that you see on the horizon. So we do look at Web3 and all those items, all those new areas that we see. We scout a lot, we research a lot, we partner with universities. We also come up with, ground up products. We incubate them and take them all the way to the first MVP. So there's a lot of these exciting activities we do as a part of the Outshift team.
That's super fascinating, super exciting. And of course, Cisco is a company that's really on the cutting edge of a lot of this stuff. And it sounds like the Cisco or the Outshift team is really focusing on that. Something I'd love to ask you about is, in your experience, what are kind of the key factors that contribute to building robust and scalable AI models for business solutions?
Okay, so I think, sorry. So it all begins with data being used, right? The data that is being used to train the models is the number one thing. Mm-hmm. And if this data has the right signals and patterns, then modeling that is not a problem. It's not
Yeah.
about the amount of data; it is the quality of data that we get and the kind of signals that are there in the data. After that,
Okay.
once you have built a model, it's about adding all the checks and balances to ensure that the model stays in line. This
Mhm.
means that we have to track model drift. That's number one, to see that the model is
Okay.
performing to expectations. Then, of course, there are the other elements that come in, like bias monitoring, hallucinations, stuff like that, where you see the model not behaving expected. We need to monitor them, correct them. And then when it comes to deployments, of course, we need to focus on cost. As much as
Mhm.
exciting the machine learning world is today, the cost is a key factor. And it has to be, the solutions that we build has to be cost effective. The cheaper we make
Okay.
AI, the more will be the applications of AI in the world.
Okay. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And really bringing down that cost, I think, is going to unlock so much innovation. So that's something I personally am very excited for. I believe you've built various systems around customer engagement, like conversational bots. I'd be curious to ask you, like, how do you see AI transforming customer experience in the future?
So conversation bots are an area where there is tremendous potential for AI to make an impact. Right? In AI, called the customer experience, traditionally has been very human focused, about human
Uh-huh.
agents, very good quality human agents who know how to talk to the customer and stuff like that. And we can expect the bots to kind of catch up to the behavior of this good human agents, like, which means that you can expect bots to become more sophisticated in their ability to
Yeah.
understand what the customer wants and needs by asking
Mhm.
thoughtful questions. Bots today are just, they are not asking questions per se, or thoughtful questions or follow-up questions based on what
Mhm.
the customer is saying, like a human being. So they will be able to ask those more thoughtful questions. They may be able to interpret a complex asks and be able to determine like root causes. They will be able to scout several sources for information and solutions based on what the customer is asking them. Typical to how a human being, like, okay, I don't know this, let me go ask person A, person B, let me go look at this
Uh-huh.
documentation, how a human behaves. But the bot should also be able to behave, and they can be more empathetic to what the customer is, based on the situation, and then based on the situation, and can engage the customer like a real human agent.
Uh-huh.
The idea is like, how quickly can we get these bots to mimic human behavior, which is a quality agent, not just any agent. I'm saying a good quality agent, how they behave, whether it's in the sales situation, or in a troubleshooting situation, or even a little service situation.
Mhm. Okay. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I think that's, incredibly critical. Something I would also love to ask you about is I know that you've kind of worked on some LinkedIn learning courses in AI and big data. I'm wondering if you can tell everyone maybe what are some common misconceptions you've encountered around maybe from some of the learners about these topics.
So let's see, big data and AI are vast domains, and there are several technologies there, and there are several new technologies that are popping up every day. And sometimes the learners do get overwhelmed with the amount
Hmm.
of knowledge they need to have in their fingertips. Like, I need to know all these technologies, I need to know all the commands and all the capabilities that these ones have. I would say that they need to be strong in the concepts and applications of these concepts in design. They need to understand, okay,
Hmm.
this is what this technology brings to the table. This is where I can use it. This is how I can use it. But when it comes to the lower level things like, individual commands, or actually how do you write codes, now, these days, there is a lot of help now in terms of coding, right? Like, searches are there to go and look for information. Your co-pilots coming up that can help you build any application quickly. So my recommendation is focus on being strong on the concepts and how and when to apply them. Getting into the nitty-gritties is something that you will want anyway learn when you get into a specific role. That's
Okay.
and
Yeah.
that's one misconception I see people there. They want to learn everything possible. In fact, I had the same
Yeah.
misconception when it started teaching. It's like, I want to teach everything
Okay.
possible. Then I realized that I don't have to do that. I rather I would focus on getting the concepts through, and then
Yeah.
if I can get
Yeah.
that through and get that one thing done, and then the rest the students will build upon.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. There's just like so much happening. There's so much information and data that it's impossible to always get everything through. But if you can have a solid, list of things that are really valuable and get them done in a really well put together manner, I think, and for learners, that's really critical. Something I would like to ask you a little bit. I heard you recently talking about the concept of scouter models, specifically designed for monitoring model drift. I'm wondering if you can explain to everyone that's listening what a scouter model is and why it's important.
Okay. The scouter model is something that we innovated within Outshift. So what it is that in order to monitor concept drift for machine learning models in production, we need to have the true label for targets to be collected in production scenarios. So suppose I'm predicting something in production. To know if my prediction is correct, I also want to know what is the right value there. But in most cases, such labels are not automatically available, and you need to manually build them, like you need to annotate them through human annotation or by doing some other programmatic annotation. This means that observing concept drift is a very expensive task if you have to go through annotation and stuff like that. Or it is not possible if you don't have true labels. A scouter model is essentially a complementary model that can predict if the main model is drifting. It is a model to monitor a model. And it uses just the features that are already available to you during inference and production. And what it actually tries to do is it tries to predict one of the features using the predicted targets. It kind of reverses the machine learning process to say you makes a target as the feature and feature as the target and see, can I predict the feature using the target? And if I can reverse predict it correctly, that means that most probably I'm predicting the original one correctly. It's kind of, if I can predict B with A, can I predict A with B?
Gotcha. Okay. Very, very interesting. Something that I would, love to know is how do you kind of go about choosing the right scouter variables, and what are some of the best practices for implementing, successful drift detection?
Okay, the right scouter variable is one that has good correlation with the target variable. And what you have seen is this typically multi-class features, classes of customer classes and stuff like that. They form actually very good scouter variables as opposed to binary features or, continuous features. And also when we are building the scouter model, we need to again keep the costs down because the scouter model is not the main model. It is just an observability tool. You don't want to build a very expensive observability tool because, the cost will overlay its benefits. So we need to keep the cost down. And the scouter model build, training and deployment should be kind of co-located with the main model itself. So every time you train the main model, you also need to train the scouter model. You also need to deploy them together as a pair. And then the scouter, and then it should be used to periodically, of course, observe and predict if the model is drifting. And even if you observe a drift in one observation, you want to also observe it for multiple continuous observations. Like today, I see the model is drifting, doesn't mean that I need to go and take action. Wait and see for the next 2 or 3 days. If it is steady, the drift stays. It is just not an anomaly for one day, it comes back normal kind of thing. So if the drift stays up, that means that, the model is really drifting. That's when you want to go and take a look at why it is drifting and understand the root cause and then take action, which could be like, going and retraining the model.
Okay, gotcha. Based off of all of that, something I'd be curious to ask you is, what challenges have you faced in deploying AI models in production, especially when it comes to model drift and decay and some of these other issues?
Of course, there is this standard deployment issues like, creating the right platform for deployment, scaling up, scaling down, keeping the cost down and stuff like that. But when it comes to model drift and decay, the main reason why models drift is because the business environment changes, thereby changing the relationships between the features and the targets. The model is built assuming that a relationship exists between the feature and the target, and if that relationship changes, then the model is of no use. This is why we need to keep monitoring both the concept drift and feature drift to ensure that the environment is steady, the business environment is steady. There could also be technical issues in data collection and processing. That could lead to drift because it is changing the input data. Like if you have a camera, for example, for object detection, the camera just gets tilted because it's so windy that day. All your images are tilted, right? So It kind of impacts
Right.
what is coming into the model, and then it impacts what's coming out of the model. So we need to also be looking out for those kind of issues. The other thing is then how do you detect the root causes for drift? Because that's not a straightforward one. Because I see drift, I don't know why it is drifting. That's an involved
Right.
process because it's not just about data scientists. You also need to work with the business folks to understand where the problem could be. You need to look at the entire pipeline and then say, hey, did the business scenario change? Did you guys, like, for example, marketing may put out a new message that can suddenly increase sales or change the demographics of people buying the product, and that can impact your model too. So you got these kind of changes also impact your model. So we need to kind of also work together and figure out why it is drifting.
Okay. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And yeah, there's so many challenges there, but it's fascinating and impressive that some of the things you guys are working on. Something I would love to pick your brain on is, how do you see the role of ML ops evolving in the coming years, particularly like if we're looking at the context of model monitoring and maintenance?
So the role of ML ops, if you see, has been steadily increasing, and its importance is continuously growing. Like as more and more models are being deployed, and they are dealing with more and more critical business functions. Their efficiency, monitoring their efficiency and effectiveness is important. Monitoring, ensuring that it all stays together, it works together, is improving. And with generative AI, especially, the task of training models is going down. We don't have to train every model from scratch, but you still need to ensure efficient operations. Similarly, in the training process, now we are doing a lot of auto ML kind of stuff, where you have automated training pipelines that do feature engineering, model training, testing. That is also a part of ML ops. So all of that is kind of increasing because they are trying to customize your models based on auto ML. In all these cases, ML ops plays an important role. Automation starts playing a very important role because more and more people are trying to automate the steps all the way from data ingestion all the way to model building to deployment to monitoring. So ML ops is going more and more towards automation. And you are now seeing ML AI ops, for example, where AI is being used to monitor how your models are working. Right, so you have applications of machine learning to monitor if your machine learning stuff is working. So it's going on at that level at this point, and it's going to just increase. As more and more of these models are there out there, they do more automated work. They all need to be monitored.
Okay, yeah, that's going to be so fascinating to see how that evolution plays out. And then something else I would like to ask you about is, kind of based on all your 2 decades of experience in this space, where you see the field of AI and machine learning heading, let's say in the next 3 to 5 years. What are some of the big shifts you think are coming down the pipe?
So as you see, AI, the machine learning models are now being embedded in literally every device that you have, right?
Yeah.
Your smartphone, your phone, your car, your refrigerator. It's kind of starting to have more and more impact on people's daily lives, like whether it is professional lives or in personal lives. Whether you're working in ML or not, you're using ML for some of your work, either personal or professional. And that is, I think, only going to keep increasing over time. You're going to have all these co-working together kind of scenarios a lot, where we will see humans working more closely with more models side by side to achieve both personal goals and business goals. So a business goal could be like, you can have a code co-pilot that helps me build the program. A personal co-pilot could be that can help me with shopping for a new dress. So you're going to have them together where AI is going to help humans with more mundane, repetitive, and knowledge-based tasks. And humans are more focused around creativity, strategy, decision-making, that kind of stuff. The human is kind of a very good sidekick. Sorry, not the human. The AI is going to be a very good sidekick for you that helps you deal with all this mundane stuff. Today, for example, you need to go find, I need to buy a refrigerator. What is the best in the market? You go and do the search, right? You do the research. You can now have an AI do it for you and come back and tell you, hey, this is what I found.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so fascinating, all the shifts that we're going to be seeing in the future coming down the pipe. Listen, Kumaran, it has been fantastic having you on the podcast, learning from you, getting some insights. If people are interested in connecting with you or learning more about what you're currently working on, what's the best way for them to go about doing that?
They can connect to me on LinkedIn. that seem to be the most easy way to connect. And of course, if they want to know about Outshift, Outshift by Cisco has its own website. You can search on Google and take a look at the exciting projects we are doing there.
Okay. Very cool. Well, thank you so much for coming on and sharing. To the listener, thanks so much for tuning in to the AI Chat podcast. Make sure to rate us wherever you get your podcasts and have a fantastic rest of your day.